The alarm went off at 5:30 a.m., shrill and merciless, dragging me out of a half-dream that dissolved the second my feet hit the cold floor. I was Alyssa Dunn, 26, and for the past 3 years I'd been living someone else's life. My sister's, to be exact. While Cheryl worked night shifts and slept half the day away, I became the stand-in mother to her 4 kids. Logan was 15, sarcastic and moody. Ellie was 12, anxious and fiery. Hunter was 9, endlessly curious. And little Nora, just 6, clung to me like her life depended on it. They weren't my children, but every morning they might as well have been. That particular morning started like all the others. Chaos served with burnt toast. Logan blasted music so loud the walls vibrated while Ellie screeched. "You ate my Pop-Tart yesterday." She slammed the cupboard door hard enough to rattle the dishes. Hunter managed to spill an entire glass of orange juice on the counter, watching the sticky river cascade to the floor with wide-eyed fascination. And Nora tugged at my pajama pants, begging for braids in her hair before school. My head pounded before sunrise. And I hadn't even touched the coffee pot. I cut the Pop-Tart in half with a butter knife like a judge making a verdict. Mopped juice with paper towels, tied 2 messy braids, and shoved my bare feet into sneakers. By 7 o'clock, I had all 4 kids strapped into the car. Logan sulking with earbuds in. Ellie complaining about math homework. Hunter peppering me with dinosaur facts. And Nora singing off-key to a song she half remembered. By the time I dropped them off, my temples throbbed. Then came my 6-hour shift at the coffee shop. I earned $15 to $16 an hour. About what most baristas in Madison made. Enough to cover my gas and phone bill but nothing more. Customers barely looked me in the eye. "Can you make it quick?" one guy barked, snapping his fingers like I wasn't already juggling 3 lattes, a frappe, and the cash register. I forced smiles, steamed milk until my arms ached, and reminded myself this job was just a bridge to something better. Except the bridge kept getting longer. When my shift ended, I raced to pick up the kids, refereed arguments in the backseat, and cooked spaghetti while Logan demanded a ride to soccer practice and Ellie whined about missing her recital rehearsal. Hunter asked me how tornadoes formed while Nora clung to my leg, refusing to eat unless I cut her noodles smaller. Cheryl was gone, working nights at the supermarket. Blake, her boyfriend, worked the same shift. On a good day I saw Cheryl for 10 minutes before she collapsed on the couch, mumbling, "Thanks for holding it together." Nights were supposed to be my escape. After dishes and homework checks, I'd open my laptop for online graphic design classes. I'd always dreamed of building my own studio, creating bold logos for real clients. But by midnight my eyes burned, my head drooped, and I'd wake to a dead battery and unfinished assignments. Professors sent polite but firm reminders about missed deadlines. My sketchbook filled with doodles for Nora, not the vibrant designs that once made my heart race. I tried to shrug it off until Ellie tiptoed into my room one night. She looked at me with big worried eyes. "Why do you look so tired?" she whispered. I forced a smile, just trying to keep up. She hugged me, her small arms tight around my waist. For a moment I felt needed. But then I thought, needed for what? To change diapers, drive carpools, and break up fights? I wasn't their mom. Yet I was the one emptying my savings, $3,000 left from my failed bakery, on school supplies and pharmacy runs. Cheryl's money barely covered rent and groceries. Blake never offered a dime. "You're so good with them," Cheryl often told me, her tone dripping with what she thought was praise. To me, it felt like shackles. I was living her life, not mine. Tara, my best friend, saw it more clearly than I did. One night I vented to her over the phone, pacing the kitchen while the kids watched TV. "I'm drowning," I confessed. Tara, who freelanced in graphic design full-time, didn't sugarcoat. "You're not their mom. Alyssa, stop putting your life on hold." Her words stung. I stared at my laptop, the half-finished logo project glaring back at me. She was right. The kids weren't the problem. I loved their quirks. Logan's sharp humor, Ellie's shy smiles, Hunter's endless questions, Nora's clingy hugs. But love didn't mean surrendering my entire future. Every day I spent raising Cheryl's kids was another day further from who I wanted to be. Still, I shoved the guilt aside, telling myself I could handle it. 10 hours a day on the kids. 6 at work. 3 for school. That left maybe 5 for sleep. My body ran on caffeine. My dreams on fumes. And then, just when I thought I couldn't stretch myself thinner, Cheryl came home one evening. Blake at her side, grinning ear to ear. He carried a greasy pizza box like it was a trophy. Cheryl grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the couch. Her voice sparkled with excitement. "I'm pregnant," she announced. 5th kid. Can you believe it? The room tilted. My stomach clenched. I muttered, "Wow, congrats." But inside my chest ached with disbelief. Another baby. Another layer of responsibility. Another piece of my life slipping away. And just when I thought the news couldn't hit harder, Cheryl's face hardened. She glanced at Blake, then back at me. "We've been talking," she said slowly. "You're so good with the kids. Alyssa, we need you to step up more." I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. The smell of greasy pizza still lingered in the kitchen when Cheryl dropped her real bomb. She leaned back against the couch, one hand on her belly like she was already the glowing mother-to-be, and said it as casually as if she were asking me to pass the salt. "We think it'd be best if you quit that coffee shop job and stay home with the kids full-time. They need you more than lattes do." I blinked, trying to process. Quit my job? The only paycheck I had? My only proof I wasn't completely swallowed by this family's demands? My throat tightened as Blake chimed in, his voice smug. "Yeah, you're already doing most of it anyway. Might as well focus on them instead of wasting time." And then, the kicker. Cheryl's eyes narrowed. "Also, we've been covering all the bills. It's only fair you contribute $300 a month for rent. You eat our food. You use our space. It's time to step up." I felt the fork slip from my hand and clatter against the plate. $300. I was barely scraping together enough for gas, phone bills, and classes. Worse, every last dollar of my savings, the $3,000 from my failed bakery, was already being drained on school supplies, doctor visits, and shoes for feet that never stopped growing. Inside, I was screaming. Out loud, I whispered, "I already do everything. School runs, homework, dinners, laundry. I can't quit my job too." My voice shook, but neither of them flinched. Blake shrugged like it was no big deal. "It's temporary. Once we're back on our feet after the baby, things will even out." His words made my blood boil. Temporary. I'd been their crutch for 3 years. I shoved my plate away and stood, my chair scraping across the floor. "I need to think about this," I said, turning before my rage spilled over. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my heart racing. Tara's words came back to me. "You're not their mom. Stop putting your life on hold." She was right. They weren't asking for help, they were demanding my life. The next day, while the kids were at school, I called Tara, pacing the kitchen with shaking hands. "They want me to quit my job and pay rent," I blurted. "They're treating me like their maid." Tara didn't hesitate. "They're using you, Alyssa. They know childcare costs a fortune in this country. You're their free nanny, and they're not even grateful." She wasn't wrong. I'd read that childcare in the US averaged over $13,000 a year per kid. 13,000. Multiply that by 4. And Cheryl and Blake were saving more than 50 grand a year because of me. And they still had the audacity to ask me for money. I opened my laptop, fingers trembling, and typed, "Studio Apartments Madison." Listings filled the screen. $1.200. $1.250. $1.300 a month. More than half my income. But the thought of having a place where no one screamed my name, where my sketchbooks stayed open on the table instead of being smeared with spaghetti sauce, that dream was worth every penny. At the coffee shop, I begged for extra shifts. My manager raised an eyebrow but agreed. $16 an hour, 30 hours a week. I did the math on scratch paper during my break. $1.800 a month. If I lived tight, rice, beans, second-hand clothes, I could make it. Barely, but freedom had no price tag. Back home, Cheryl pushed harder. One morning she shoved a list of chores into my hand. Grocery runs, soccer fees, doctor appointments. Think of the kids, she urged. They need stability. Blake had the gall to suggest I sell my leftover bakery equipment for cash. I bit my tongue until I tasted blood. The kids weren't blind. Logan caught me late at night packing my laptop into my backpack. You okay? He asked. His usual sarcasm gone. I hesitated, then admitted, I'm trying to be. His eyes darkened, like he understood more than I wanted him to. Ellie overheard us talking later. She cornered me, twisting her hair nervously. Are you leaving because we're too much? She whispered. My chest caved in. I knelt down, hugged her tight. No, Ellie, not because of you, because I need my own life too. She sobbed quietly into my shoulder, and I held her until her breathing steadied. Hunter asked if I'd still help with his science project. Nora begged me not to forget to braid her hair. My heart cracked into pieces. But I knew staying meant losing myself completely. I started teaching Logan little things. How to use the washing machine. How to cook simple meals. How to check Nora's inhaler. You're 15, I told him. You're stronger than you think. He rolled his eyes but wrote everything down. Days turned into weeks. I scoured rental listings, scrolled through budgeting apps, whispered plans into the phone with Tara. Every moment under Cheryl's roof felt heavier, suffocating, but every plan for escape sparked a flicker of hope. One evening, while helping Ellie with history homework, Cheryl stormed into the kitchen, arms crossed, eyes cold. You're not pulling your weight, Alyssa, she snapped. I asked you to step up. And you're still wasting time at that coffee shop. It's irresponsible. My breath caught. Irresponsible. The word stung like a slap. I set the textbook down and met her glare. I'm already running this house. I said. I cook, clean, drive the kids every day. Don't call me irresponsible. She rolled her eyes, her laugh sharp as glass. That's not enough. With the baby coming, we need you here, not chasing some hobby degree. Rage surged in me. My design classes aren't a hobby. They're my future. Her lips curled. Future? You're living in my house. Eating my food. You think you're too good for us now? Ellie's eyes widened, darting between us. My heart pounded, but I forced my voice steady. I'm not your servant, Cheryl. I've given you 3 years of my life. Her face twisted, her words hissing through clenched teeth. If you're not all in, maybe you shouldn't be here at all. I froze. Was she really kicking me out? She didn't wait for an answer. She turned on her heel and disappeared, leaving me trembling with fury. I stepped outside, dialed Tara with shaking hands. She called me irresponsible. I whispered. She thinks I owe her my entire life. Tara's voice was steady, firm. No, Alyssa, you owe her nothing. You need boundaries. Find your own place. You deserve it. I looked up at the night sky. Stars faint through city haze. And for the first time in years, I let myself believe she was right. The next morning I packed lunches with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Peanut butter sandwiches, apple slices, juice boxes, my usual assembly line, but my mind was miles away. Stuck on Cheryl's words from the night before. If you're not all in, maybe you shouldn't be here at all. At first, her threat made me feel disposable. Like I was nothing after 3 years of sacrifice. But then, something inside me shifted. Maybe she was right. Maybe I shouldn't be there at all. That thought didn't scare me. It electrified me. After dropping the kids at school, I detoured across town to see my first apartment listing. It was a tiny studio downtown. Just one room with a kitchenette and a cracked linoleum floor. But it smelled like freedom. The landlord quoted $1,500 a month plus a deposit. My stomach flipped. My savings, barely $3, would cover the deposit and first month. But I'd need to stretch every dollar after that. I nodded anyway, clutching my phone like a lifeline. Back at Cheryl's, I hid the rental brochures under my mattress. She couldn't know. Not yet. Logan noticed first. One evening, he saw me scribbling numbers in a notebook. You're moving out, aren't you? He asked flatly. I swallowed hard, then nodded. I need my own life too, Logan, but I'll still be here for you guys, just in a different way. He frowned. fiddling with the drawstring of his hoodie. But didn't argue. That week I started quietly teaching him survival skills. How to check expiration dates at the store. How to reset the Wi-Fi when it cut out. How to scramble eggs without burning the pan. He rolled his eyes but listened. Ellie watched us from the doorway. Silent tears streaking her cheeks. Later she whispered, "Promise you won't disappear." I hugged her tight. "Never. I'll always be here. Just not in this house." Hunter and Nora were trickier. Hunter asked who would help with his science project. Nora begged me not to forget bedtime braids. Each question stabbed deeper, but I forced myself to reassure them. I wasn't abandoning them. I was saving myself so I could be a real support. Not a crumbling shell. Finally, the day came. I signed the lease, moved my few boxes into the studio, and set my sketchbooks on the desk. It was bare, just a mattress on the floor and a thrift store chair, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I closed a door and felt silence wrap around me like a blanket. But Cheryl didn't let me go that easily. 3 days later, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered, expecting a client inquiry from my online design profile. Instead, a stern male voice said, "This is Officer Doyle from the Madison Police Department. We've received a complaint regarding your sister's property. Can you meet us at her address?" My blood ran cold. When I pulled up, 2 officers stood on the porch. Cheryl was there too, her face red, her finger stabbing the air at me. "She stole $500 and trashed our stuff," she screamed. I gaped. "What?" Officer Doyle flipped his clipboard. "She's claiming theft and vandalism. We need to take a look." Cheryl dragged us inside, pointing at the sofa with a ripped cushion. She did this before she left. Then she yanked open the laundry closet. And the washing machine's broken now. She broke it on purpose. I stood frozen. The sofa had been torn since last summer when Hunter spilled juice. The washer had been clunky for months because Cheryl stuffed comforters in it. I hadn't touched either since moving out. "I haven't taken anything," I said firmly. "I've been at my apartment all week. You can search my place. My car. Everything." Officer Reed crouched, examining the sofa. He tugged at the frayed edges. Frowning. "This tear isn't new. There are old stains around it." He moved to the washer. Pulling the plug. Checking wires. "Looks like wear and tear. Not sabotage." Cheryl's face twitched. "The money was in my dresser." She insisted. She knew where it was. Before I could respond, Logan stepped into the doorway. His jaw tight. "Mom, stop." His voice was low but steady. "She didn't steal anything. Logan, go upstairs." Cheryl snapped. He didn't move. "That sofa's been ripped since last summer. Hunter spilled grape juice on it. Remember? The washing machine broke because you overloaded it. And the money? You spent it on groceries last month. We all saw." Cheryl's eyes widened. "Logan, you're just mad she moved out." He cut in. His voice cracked but his chin lifted defiantly. "Alyssa's been more of a parent than you." Silence fell. My throat tightened. Officer Doyle closed his clipboard. "Ma'am, without proof we can't pursue this. False reports are a problem. Please don't waste our time again." The officers left. Cheryl stood frozen, her face pale with fury. I turned to Logan, my voice breaking. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did." He interrupted. "You don't deserve this." Back at my studio, I collapsed onto my mattress. Tears spilling unchecked. Cheryl had tried to smear me, even drag the law into it. But Logan's defense rang in my ears. He saw the truth. They all did. I called Tara, still shaking. She accused me of theft. She tried to ruin me. Tara's voice was sharp. "She's lashing out because she's losing control. Keep your distance. Alyssa, protect yourself." I promised her I would. But even as I hung up, my phone buzzed again. Logan. His message was just 4 words. "Mom's in the hospital." My breath caught. Despite everything, despite her lies and betrayal, I felt my chest cave in. For the kids' sake, I had to go. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. I rushed through the automatic doors, my heart hammering. Logan's shaky call still echoing in my ears. "Mom's in the hospital. Something about her pregnancy." A doctor met me in the waiting area. She introduced herself as Dr. Patel. Her expression serious but calm. Your sister has placenta previa. She explained. The placenta is covering the cervix, which increases the risk of bleeding. She'll need strict bed rest, possibly until delivery. In some cases, it requires an early C-section. Placenta previa. I'd heard the term before but never thought it would apply to Cheryl. My chest tightened. 3 months. That's how long she'd need monitoring. 3 months of her stuck in bed. Unable to work. Unable to parent. I walked into her room, bracing myself. Cheryl looked small, pale, nothing like the fiery sister who'd screamed accusations at me just days before. Her voice was weak when she said, "The kids need you." For a moment, I almost laughed. After everything, after calling the cops, after trying to make me her servant, now she admitted the truth. But her words weren't a request. They were a demand, the same as always. I swallowed hard. "I'll help," I said, my tone firm, but only for the kids. And on my terms. Cheryl frowned, her lips trembling. "What does that mean?" "It means I keep my job. I keep my apartment. I don't pay you a dime. I'll step in for 3 months. No more." She tried to protest, but exhaustion silenced her. For once, I had the upper hand. That evening, I drove back to her house. The second I opened the door, the chaos hit me. Dishes piled in the sink. Laundry overflowed from baskets. Homework scattered across the table. Nora sobbed in the corner, clinging to a stuffed bunny with a missing ear. Ellie sat nearby, trying to comfort her but on the verge of tears herself. Hunter sprawled on the floor, half-finished math problems in front of him. Logan paced like a caged lion, his fists clenched. Blake? Nowhere to be seen. I dropped my bag and stepped in. "Okay, team," I said, clapping my hands. "We're going to do this differently." We split the chores. "Logan, you handle laundry and groceries. Ellie, you're in charge of dishes and reading Nora bedtime stories. Hunter, your job is to keep your room tidy and help with little tasks. Nora, you help me with setting the table." Logan raised an eyebrow. "Like a chore chart?" "Exactly," I said. "You're the team now, not me, not your mom, you." He nodded reluctantly. Ellie wiped her eyes and gave me a small smile. Even Nora sniffled and agreed. For the first time, I saw a flicker of hope. That night, after dinner and homework, Ellie whispered, "Are you staying over?" I knelt beside her. "No, honey, I'm here for you, but I need my own space too." She nodded, though her eyes were sad. I stuck to my rules. I came after my coffee shop shifts to cook and check homework. But at night, I always went back to my studio. My sanctuary. Still, the cracks in Cheryl's life widened. Blake drifted further, spending more time at the supermarket or in the garage than with his own kids. One night, Nora cried herself to sleep because he'd promised to come to her school play, and didn't show. He said he'd be there. She sobbed. Logan overheard and muttered bitterly, "He's checked out. Always has been." I didn't argue. He was right. I carried the weight, but not the same way as before. I wasn't losing myself this time. I cooked. I guided. But I also let Logan take charge and Ellie step up. They were learning resilience, whether they wanted to or not. Some nights, Tara called while I washed dishes. "You're doing too much again," she warned. "Don't let them pull you back in." I sighed, glancing at Nora coloring at the table. "It's just 3 months. Tara, I've got boundaries this time." But deep down, I wondered if boundaries meant anything when love was involved. By the second month, the routine was steady. School, chores, dinner, homework. Cheryl called sometimes from her hospital bed, asking for updates, but I kept it short. Logan stepped into the role of man of the house, with quiet strength. Though I saw the strain in his eyes. Ellie blossomed, taking responsibility for Nora's bedtime stories. Hunter beamed when he solved math problems on his own. Still, I knew this couldn't last forever. One night, Cheryl called and her tone shifted. "Alyssa, you're doing so well with them," she said softly. Then her voice hardened. "You should just stay. Forget the apartment. They need you." I froze, the phone hot against my ear. The same manipulation, the same trap, creeping back in. I took a deep breath and cut the call. I wasn't falling for it again. 3 months passed in a blur of homework sheets, spaghetti dinners, and late-night phone calls from the hospital. When Cheryl was finally discharged, she came home with a newborn swaddled in a pale blue blanket. For a fleeting moment, the house softened, the kids circled the baby, whispering, touching his tiny hands, their eyes wide with awe. But the sweetness didn't last. I stood in the kitchen, the diaper bag slung over my shoulder. Cheryl barely set foot inside before snapping back into her old tone. You can keep helping, right? You've got a system going. The kids are used to you. I shook my head. My voice was steady. No. I said 3 months. I'm done. Her jaw dropped. You're abandoning us again? I met her glare. Unmoving. I'm not abandoning anyone. I love these kids. But I can't live this life for you anymore. You're their mom. Step up. She muttered something under her breath and turned away. But I didn't chase her. That was the moment I cut the cord for good. Of course, Cheryl's world began to unravel fast. Within weeks, she lost her job at the call center. Too many absences. Too much chaos. Blake packed a bag one night and left without even saying goodbye. The neighbors stopped dropping by, sick of excuses and drama. The kids were stranded in the storm of their mother's collapse. But I refused to get pulled back into the undertow. Instead, I created a new system. Tara became my anchor. She lived close enough to the kids to check in regularly. So I funneled my support through her. $50 from every coffee shop paycheck went straight to Tara for school supplies or snacks for the kids. I set up video calls twice a week. Logan showed me his algebra problems. Ellie read me snippets of her essays. Hunter held up his science project Volcano, grinning as it erupted foam. Nora begged for bedtime stories. So I spun tales of enchanted forests and talking foxes over the phone. It wasn't the same as being there, but it kept us tethered. Meanwhile, I poured myself into freelancing. My graphic design classes, once a source of exhaustion, turned into a launchpad. A classmate connected me with a local bakery that needed a logo. That project led to a website redesign for a cafe, then a full branding package for a yoga studio. For the first time, I had steady clients. When one of them handed me $500 for a logo set, I almost cried. That was more than I made in an entire week at the coffee shop. I started cutting back my cafe shifts, trading milk foam and grumpy customers for sketches and color palettes. My studio apartment transformed, the walls filled with mood boards and sticky notes. My desk was no longer cluttered with kids' permission slips but with swatches of blues and golds, half-finished mock-ups, and a brand new drawing tablet. Every night I worked until dawn. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. But Cheryl wasn't finished with her games. Word got back through Tara that she'd been asking about me, telling people I owed her, that she'd done everything for me, and I had turned my back. I laughed bitterly when Tara relayed the gossip. She can't guilt me anymore. I said, that currency's expired. Still, I knew better than to underestimate her. One evening, while reviewing a client's brand board, my phone buzzed with Logan's name. His voice cracked when I answered. Mom's struggling. Bills are piling up. She keeps crying. I don't know what to do. My chest ached. You don't have to fix it, Logan. Just focus on school. I'll help where I can. After we hung up, I wired Tara an extra $20 for groceries. It wasn't much, but it was something. The guilt gnawed at me. I could hear Ellie's laughter through video calls, but also the weariness in her voice. I saw Logan's shoulders stoop under weight too heavy for 15. Nora begged for more stories, clinging to the sound of my voice. Hunter asked when I'd visit again, his eyes shining with hope. But every time I considered driving back, I remembered standing in that kitchen. Cheryl's voice like a whip. If you're not all in, maybe you shouldn't be here at all. I remembered her calling the police on me. I remembered nearly losing myself completely. No, I couldn't go back. So I built forward instead. I signed my first big contract with a Madison startup, designing their entire marketing campaign. The work was grueling, late nights, endless revisions, but when the check cleared, it covered my rent for 2 months and gave me enough to tuck into savings For the first time since my bakery collapsed. I wasn't drowning. I was swimming towards something that was mine. The kids remained my constant. I mailed Ellie a sketchbook for her birthday. She sent back a drawing of the two of us labeled, Best Aunt. Hunter called to announce he'd won his science fair ribbon, holding it up proudly to the camera. Nora begged me to braid her hair through video, giggling when I tried to mimic the motions with my own ponytail. Logan grew quieter, but one night he whispered, "Thanks for not giving up on us." I wiped tears from my eyes after that call. No, I hadn't given up. I just stopped giving up on myself too. And that made all the difference. By the time spring rolled in, my tiny studio no longer looked like a hollow box. The mattress was still on the floor, but the walls were alive with sketches, mood boards, and sticky notes. My desk was a battlefield of Pantone swatches, font printouts, and coffee-stained sketchpads. Where once exhaustion had chained me to a screen, now I leaned into the late nights, pouring myself into work because it felt like mine. The Madison startup I'd taken on as a client gave me my first taste of stability. They needed everything: logo, website redesign, marketing graphics, and their endless requests nearly drove me mad. But when their payment cleared, covering rent and utilities for 2 months, I felt something I hadn't in years: security. I wasn't rich, but I wasn't scrambling either. With that cushion, I cut ties with the coffee shop completely. No more 6-hour shifts of steaming milk and plastering fake smiles. I was my own boss now. The day I quit, my manager raised an eyebrow. "You sure? Freelancing's tough." I smiled, sliding off my apron. "So am I." Still, the kids were never far from my thoughts. My twice-weekly video calls became ritual. Logan logged on with slumped shoulders, but I made him laugh by pretending to critique his hoodie like it was a fashion show. Ellie proudly held up her essays, her handwriting neat and careful. Hunter shoved his latest science model into the camera until it nearly cracked the screen. And Nora demanded story time, squealing when I used silly voices. They were my tether, my reminder of why I'd fought so hard to break free. But guilt had a way of creeping back in. One night, Logan confessed, his voice heavy, "I've been thinking about getting a part-time job to help Mom with bills." The words hit me like a punch. 15 years old, already willing to sacrifice his future. He was walking the exact path I'd been trapped on. My chest tightened. "No," I said firmly. "Your job is school. Let me worry about the rest." But I knew my reach had limits. Meanwhile, Cheryl's situation spiraled. Tara, who still stopped by sometimes, filled me in. "She's skipping shifts again. Blake's gone. Bills are piling up." I tried to feel detached, but a piece of me still winced at the thought of the kids caught in her wreckage. At the same time, something bigger loomed in the world around us. News articles flashed across my feed. Childcare costs in the U.S. skyrocketing. Parents crushed under the weight. One report said the average family spent more than $13 a year per child. No wonder Cheryl had leaned on me. But understanding the system didn't excuse the exploitation. Love wasn't a license to change someone else's life. Some states were experimenting with fixes. New Mexico was moving toward free childcare for families by 2025. I caught myself daydreaming. What if that had existed when Cheryl had her first kid? Would I have been free to chase my own bakery dream without becoming the unpaid babysitter? I'd never know. But one thing was clear. I had to be the example now. For Logan, for Ellie, for all of them. So I doubled down. I signed on 2 more steady clients, a local bookstore that needed seasonal flyers, and a catering company desperate for a rebrand. My income wasn't glamorous, but it was enough to keep the lights on, keep food in the pantry, and slip $50 to Tara each month for the kids. One night during a video call, Ellie's eyes glistened as she whispered, "I'm scared, Aunt Alyssa. What if everything falls apart?" I swallowed hard. Then we build it back, piece by piece, together. I taught her a breathing exercise I'd learned. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold. Exhale. She giggled through the tears, counting on her fingers. For her birthday, I mailed her a fresh sketchbook and colored pencils. A week later, she sent me a drawing of a girl standing in front of a giant door. On the other side was light pouring through. At the bottom she'd scribbled, "That's you." Hunter called days later, shouting into the phone, "I won first place at the science fair." He shoved the ribbon at the screen so hard it blurred. Nora clapped beside him, chanting, "Winner, winner." I laughed, clapping with them until my cheeks hurt. But Logan carried the heaviest weight. During one late-night call, he finally admitted, "Mom's not trying. She says she's tired, but she doesn't even look for work anymore." His voice cracked. "I feel like it's all on me." I pressed my palm to the screen, wishing I could reach through. "It's not on you. I know it feels like it. But it's not. Focus on your grades, please." He nodded, but his eyes told me he didn't believe it. When the call ended, I sat in silence, staring at the sketches scattered across my desk. I'd escaped Cheryl's grip, built something new, carved out freedom, but the cycle was already trying to wrap itself around Logan. And if I wasn't careful, the boy who defended me against police lies could end up shackled the same way I had been. I couldn't let that happen. The next morning, I woke up with a pit in my stomach. Logan's voice from the night before haunted me. "I feel like it's all on me." I knew that feeling too well, the crushing sense of being responsible for everyone else's survival. I had lived it for 3 years, and it nearly erased me. I wasn't about to let it erase him too. I called him after school, asked him to meet me at the public library downtown. He showed up with his hood pulled low, his backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder. Looking older than 15 and yet heartbreakingly young. We sat at a corner table, the smell of old books wrapping around us like a blanket. "Logan," I said carefully, "you're not the parent here. You shouldn't have to think about jobs or bills. Your job is school." He rolled his eyes. "Somebody has to help. Mom's not." He stopped, his voice tight. I slid a notebook across the table. Inside, I'd sketched out a simple plan, homework schedules, a list of chores for each sibling, and a budget worksheet that showed how little money really stretched. "You don't have to carry this alone," I told him, "but you do need tools. You're smart. You can organize things, not take them all on your back." For the first time, his expression softened. He flipped through the pages, muttering, "This could actually work." I wasn't naive. A notebook wouldn't fix everything. But it was a start, a reminder that being responsible didn't mean being consumed. Meanwhile, my freelance work hit a turning point. The Madison startup loved my campaign. They referred me to a partner company. And within weeks I had 3 contracts running at once. The deadlines were brutal, but the paychecks made my hands tremble with relief. I started a savings account I labeled Emergency for Kids. $50 a month went straight into it. Sometimes $100 if I could spare it. Not for Cheryl, for Logan, Ellie, Hunter, and Nora. Tara became my co-conspirator. I sent her grocery gift cards and school supply vouchers, never with my name on them. She delivered them quietly to the kids, shielding them from Cheryl's sharp tongue. On video calls, Nora would hold up a new coloring book. Beaming, "Look what we got," she squealed. I smiled, swallowing the lump in my throat, and told her to draw me something magical. Ellie sent me pages from her sketchbook, portraits of me, of her siblings, of a woman standing at a cliff's edge, the horizon blazing with light. "That's you," she wrote underneath. I taped it above my desk as a reminder of why I kept fighting for this balance. Cheryl, meanwhile, unraveled. She missed shifts, lost jobs, cycled through excuses. Word through Tara was that Blake had never returned. The neighbors stopped checking in. She tried reaching out to me once through a cousin, hinting that I owed her for everything she'd done. I laughed bitterly when Tara told me, "She can't guilt me anymore. That chain's broken." Instead, I turned outward. I wrote a blog post one night, pouring my story into the screen. How unpaid caregiving can swallow a person whole. How America's hidden army of family caregivers contributes an estimated $600 billion of unpaid labor every year. And how we need to start valuing that work. My hands shook as I hit publish. But the response stunned me. Comments flooded in. People telling their own stories of sacrifice, of being trapped, of finally breaking free. It was bigger than just me and Cheryl. It was systemic. And I wanted my story to be a flare in the dark for anyone else drowning. 3 months later, Logan called me late one night. "Guess what?" he said. His voice lighter than I'd heard in ages. "I got an A in history. My teacher said I'm one of the top in class." I nearly burst into tears. "Logan, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you." The camera wobbled as he handed the phone to Ellie, who giggled. "We did it together." He quizzed me. I quizzed him. Nora's little voice piped up in the background. "Story. Aunt Alyssa, tell us a story." I leaned back in my chair, the glow of my laptop casting shadows across the sketches on my wall. "Once upon a time," I began, "there was a family that thought they were falling apart. But really, they were just learning how to stand on their own." When the call ended, I sat in the quiet of my studio, the hum of the city outside my window. I looked at the latest logo project glowing on my screen, a bold design for a brand I'd named Fifth Leaf. The fifth leaf represented Cheryl's new baby, but also something more: survival, growth, resilience, a new leaf that could stand because its roots were finally its own. I whispered to myself, "I built this life, and no one can take it."